tell me if you've heard this one. In the Old Testament, the Jewish scriptures, we don't have a devil or Satan or Lucifer, really. He kind of shows up once as like a thing, but isn't really mentioned. He's not really a character. In fact, the role is often performed by God himself. And then it's not until Christians come along later on and suddenly we have a full-on Satan and his whole backstory of how he fell from heaven and all of this kind of stuff, including, horns and a pitchfork and a tail and being red and stuff like that. Well, some of that is actually true, that's a thing that happened, but it's not necessarily as bad as you might think. And so here we have, the word Satan in Blue Letter Bible here. And, you can find out that, yes, it's an adversary, one who withstands, right? Or, so like there is a part about like the job, the role that person is performing. It's not really a job description per se, but it's like the thing that they're doing at that time. Okay. And then there's also this great little article right here that you can go read on Blue Letter Bible. You could even pause and potentially read it now, but we're not talking about that right now. Instead, we're just going to look at a couple of passages and just see what's going on with some of this, right? Okay. So here we are in, let's see, in Numbers 22. Okay. And so Balaam is going to go and he's going to do his thing. And this is a great story. You could go learn more about that. It's wonderful. But here we have God is very angry when he went. And the angel of the Lord stood in the road to oppose him. Balaam was riding on his donkey and his two servants were with him. Okay, so if we just click into here, and this is just, again, how Blue Letter Bible works. It's phenomenal. Okay, you can go in and look at all this. But God was angry, right? And you can look at all these different words and all that stuff. And he was going, and the angel of the Lord, right, took his stand as an adversary, Satan. And so this is where people get the idea that, hey, like God is sometimes cast as Satan. And that's misleading, right? Because God is doing the adversarial thing. He's pushing against him, but he's not acting as, the character Satan, right? He is doing the Satan thing of being opposed to this thing that's happening, but being opposed doesn't mean that you're the devil. Okay. So like, that's one thing. Okay. So here's another one. Okay. So here we are in Job 1:6. And one day the angels came and presented themselves before the Lord and Satan came with them. Okay. And apparently this is like one of the few examples where we don't have Satan, right? So we don't have like it's actually capitalized because it's not the Satan. It's not like, there's not an article before this. Okay. So like we do have this character even in Job that's kind of, this way. Okay. And then we also have, Chronicles here, right? Where Satan rises up, right? And so, this is again, kind of this, character kind of thing. Okay. But that's not always, it is a role in a sense, a job that the person is performing, a role that the person is performing at the time or the being, right? So you have some of that. But it is also true that we have this development, but it's not just Christian. In fact, there is a large development during the Second Temple Judaism and all of this stuff where we have this realization that, hey, we've got this serpent in the garden that's kind of a divine rebel, right? He's rebelling against God. And then we've got, the characters doing these things, and like, what if we just wrapped it all up into like one like character, like, or one that's leading all the bad guys or something like that, right? And so this is a development that is actually within Judaism that then Christians who were largely Jews, right? They didn't see themselves as not Jewish. They saw themselves as Christianity, Christ, the anointed one, coming and fulfilling all the things that they had been hoping for as Jews, right? So this isn't like, oh, well, this is a new Christian idea. This is a Jewish idea that's born out of all of this, right? And if you want to learn more about this, I'll have links in the description to a short Bible Project video, as well as a long Heiser interview where you can learn more about all of this. And I will also link to Twitchy Witch's TikTok video where this was first kind of brought up to me as a question from one of my friends. She's like, I don't know how to parse all of this. I don't understand. And it's like, well, actually, a lot of what she's saying is true in this. As far as like factually, but where it's going isn't really real, right? That isn't what's actually the case. That is not what actually happened with all of this. And if you continue to watch Twitchy Witch's content, which I watched quite a bit of, it's very fun, but she really likes the Quran. And the thing to remember about that is that was written like 600s, like after Jesus. And so what it would be commenting on would be well beyond what Second Temple Jewish thinkers would have had and would be building off of that idea stuff, which she actually mentions in the video that I will link down below, that the Quran actually copies off of stuff from earlier, which is just, it's interesting, right? So don't even go off of what the rabbis write, because that's, a couple hundred years after Jesus' time. And so if we need to know what's going on in scripture with what's going on there, we have to go back to that kind of content. And that's where I think Heiser really, really shines. So hopefully this was helpful in at least getting you started. If you have more questions or want to learn more about this, just write it in the comments, and let's continue to learn more together.